The Little Johnny Chronicles, number 21, The Darkness Series, episode 3, The Opportunist. Today we're going to talk about the opportunist. Let's define it. Someone who takes advantage of situations to gain an advantage, often at the expense of ethics or morals. And that's really the point today in speaking about the opportunist. As we've spoken about before in my outline of the different tiers of evil, the opportunist falls in group 3. So there's 3 groups. Group 1, which is the most extreme evil type of people that we encounter. Group 2, which falls somewhere in the middle. They're malevolent. They're bad actors. They don't have any good intentions. However, because they don't affect quite as many people as group 1, malevolent personalities or entities, they fall somewhere in the middle, just a little bit lower than that, because it's important to make the distinction, and we haven't got there yet because we're starting at the bottom, right? Group 3. What have we discussed so far in group 3? We started with the troll series, right? Just to kind of give some context to the things that we're discussing and the deep levels that it can reach. We did dig into the trolls in depth. Now we're doing just an episode per personality or character or groups, right? Shouldn't call them groups or sets. These are sets of people or entities. The opportunist, or we talk about the addict and now the opportunist. So trolls, addict, opportunist, they're all part of group 3. There's one more in group 3, and we'll get to that one. But the reason these people are in group 3 is because they're not necessarily bad actors by nature. These folks fall victim frequently to their own personalities, and that's where like the trolling comes in. We're all guilty of it. We all fall into the troll category. We all have certain bad behaviors where we should respond a certain way, but we choose not to for whatever reason, and we do the opposite, and we become trolls in people's lives. The addict, we all have our addictions. We all have our proclivities. It's up to you to define what those are. You have to take a honest, introspective look and see exactly where you fall in that. There are lucky people who don't have addictions. They don't have those bad habits where they overconsume food, overconsume gambling, overconsume intoxicants, overconsume attention. A bunch of different ways we can be addicted. And again, those addictions leading to criminality, stealing food, stealing drugs, stealing money to buy drugs, whatever your flavor. Today we're going to talk about the opportunist. And this guy or gal, or sets, I should say, fall into this category because they aren't necessarily out looking for trouble. As I was doing a little bit of homework for this episode, I ran into what they call opportunity theory, where there's a motivation to commit crime and the opportunity to commit it. That's not what I'm talking about today. I think that's really just talking about regular crime. I guess there's some validity to calling it a theory, but that's just people being shitheads. I guess you can give it a fancy name if you want to. But the opportunist falls into a different category. Let's get into it. So the opportunist, let's talk about the honest person, the honest man. I think we've heard it. Let's keep the honest man honest. What does that mean? That means that instead of leaving your door wide open when you go to the store, you close the door behind you and you lock it. Why? Because maybe somebody's walking by and they see the door open and they know you're not home. Maybe they're a neighbor or live on your street, but they know you're not home. And they see the opportunity to walk in the door and see what's inside and see what they can take. They never really did walk the street thinking that they were going to commit a crime that day. But because the opportunity presents itself, it's irresistible to some of us, to some people. And it just depends on where you are and what you're doing as to what those opportunities might be. We'll go through some examples and see how very quickly we can move from being just a regular citizen on the street trying to go about our day to becoming a criminal because we see the opportunity to take advantage of a thing. Temptation. Let's talk about temptation for a little bit. That's really all that is we succumb to our temptation to take advantage of a thing. What could those things be? Walking by an unlocked car. We've seen the shows, I don't know if you've seen it, where the cops will leave a car in the street intentionally and leave it unlocked, and they'll leave the keys in plain sight. And of course, you have the criminal element or just regular Joe on the street who walks by a scenario like that and can't resist the temptation but to look inside the car or to actually just take the car. We've heard of people getting in trouble for joyriding versus Grand Theft Auto. I think that's kind of a dirty trick. There's really no fucking need to do it that way. I'm sure they justify it in their way, but there's already crime. You don't have to invent crimes. Crimes that are being committed. You don't have to fucking go fishing for criminals. The criminals are going to present themselves. Anyway, we can see how a car with the keys in the ignition or the keys in plain sight or an unlocked vehicle can be a lure or a temptation, because how many people keep valuables in their car, whether it be, I guess it doesn't apply anymore, but CDs, we used to keep our CD collections in there back in the day. That tells you how old I am. But also people keep valuables. Some people keep spare change, right? We have an addiction problem. Spare change could go a long way. People would maybe only need $10 or so to get their next fix. Maybe it's cheaper. I don't know how much a crack rock actually costs, or a meth, or however that works, or a joint. I don't know how much it costs, but I don't imagine it's that expensive. And so change in the vehicle could probably go a long way for some people. On top of that, if you're looking for a name or some identity stuff, it's in the glove box. You have your insurance card, you have your address. That could lead to other crimes, right? Because now, if I know you drive a fancy car and I know where you live, maybe your property is worth burglarizing. So, of course, we can start to see how the escalation starts to take place very quickly. You go from accessing an unlocked car to jotting down the person's address so that we can target their home for a burglary later, and which is a way more serious crime. And of course, that crime does not fall into this category of the opportunist. A burglary is a very specific crime with a lot of motivation. It's not a crime of opportunity. It's very much a planned attack of some sort. What else? Anything unlocked. People have sheds in the backyard. People have garages. They leave their garages unsecured. We've been to the neighborhood, and some people just leave their garage door open all the time. And then they wonder why the rake is missing, or the shovel is missing, or something even more valuable in there is missing, because people, for whatever reason, can't resist the temptation sometimes just to go in there and pillage it, because it's available. It's easy. It's an easy crime. And if there are no witnesses, then even more so, people are going to take advantage. But those are just crimes for starters. Those are crimes of opportunity, but there are ones that are way worse, and we're going to get into that right now. All right. So a lot of this comes about because people think that we're going to get something for free. We can walk by that car and look inside and see the valuable sunglasses or whatever, whether they be Ray-Bans or Gucci or whatever, and we take it. Not that I would do anything like that, but I just say we in general, because we think it's free. Nothing comes for free. Anytime there's a crime committed, and insurance pays out, our insurance bill goes up. Never mind that the insurance companies are already criminals just on GP, because they're opportunists too. They're on the list. But let me write this down. And anyway, so we think we're gonna get something for free. There's nothing free in this life. Anything you do creates emotional. If you steal something, it probably creates some sort of emotional harm to somebody. Or let's just say I recognize that my sunglasses are missing from my vehicle. I would just assume that I left them somewhere and I lost them. And now I might begin the frantic search to find them in my house or another part of the car. And now I'm wasting all kinds of fucking time because some opportunist reached inside and took the sunglasses. You could argue that maybe you shouldn't leave your car unsecured. And that's true enough, right? Keep the honest man honest. But just because a car is open, it shouldn't give people license to enter the fucking vehicle. That is an asinine argument. And they deserve to get a punch right in the forehead. Hopefully it leaves a dent. Um, Next, what are other types of crimes of opportunity? Work. We've been to work and we know that person or those people who steal supplies. They just can't help themselves to avail themselves to those things. Um, whether it be a pen or technology or a notepad or other things, right? Depending on where you work. So if you work in the food industry, maybe it's taking home a meal off the books without authorization, knowing that it's wrong. However, knowing that you can get away with it, it's you know, what's wrong with that? Just in general, again, it's a slippery slope when we start to deviate from our morals, from trying to live upstandingly. We don't live upstandingly so that we could say, look what we done and bang our chest. We live upstandingly because everything we do, whether positive or negative, affects the people around us. And if we give a shit about our environment, about the health of the people in our proximity, then it's in our best interest to align ourselves with the proper moral compass. And that's, I say proper because they're right and wrong is subjective there, right? Because my morals may not align with yours. However, if we just think about the baseline of not stealing, that's not a bad alignment with a moral compass of some sort. So we can see really quickly how being an opportunist and taking advantage, the dark side of that is contagious. It bleeds into our lives and could lead to more serious crimes, but also what type of example are we setting? And the people around us, for me, it would have been my children, when they were little. And now it's any other man who is in my proximity, who's observing my behavior. People are highly influenced by stuff. And I don't know why, because most people are not leaders. They don't tend to lead themselves. They tend to follow the crowds, depending on their motivations for whatever. And if they have more proper and good examples, of course, they will behave probably better, right? And they will learn things about themselves. And remember, this is an introspective dive that allows us to look at our dark pieces in order to interface better with our external world and create a better collective. So really quickly, we can see how fast we can swirl down the toilet bowl of darkness, even if we're just taking advantage of an opportunity to steal or take something. And it doesn't always have to be stuff. It could be services. You can have somebody come and look at your plumbing, and because you know somebody who works at the plumbing company, you might get your invoice voided, canceled, lost, whatever. That's maybe that's not so much a crime of opportunity. Maybe that's more planned. But on the flip, at the same breath, you can say some of those are crimes of opportunity if, for example, I know that the bill is coming to my house for some reason and I work in that billing department. I can simply, if it happens by chance to come across my desk or on my computer screen, maybe I can just cancel it or void it out. I wouldn't normally seek to do those types of harms, but because the situation presented itself, there I am committing that violation against the company that I work for, or whatever the scenario may be. What are other things related to work? So those things are related to work, right? Material, theft of material, theft of services. Another one is abuse of position. And that's more of an ethical crime. But at the same time, some people who achieve a certain level of authority don't understand all the benefits that come with that. The benefits of credibility, if you're doing your job right, and if you earn your position. And what that means, it's also comes with some power. And people start to learn that they can leverage that power to do and to get people to do different things. Again, most people are not leaders, they're followers. And so in order to please the boss and stay in their good graces, they're willing to do them favors. And the boss that learns that they can get the employees to do favors, and reap some sort of personal benefit, uh, it takes a strong character not to take advantage of that. Especially, for example, if you work in an environment that has a lot of females and you're a male supervisor, and you can see where I'm going with that. They can take advantage, and in a situation where they normally wouldn't. If it was all males, they would have never had that thought. And I'm not saying it's the female's fault, it's very much the supervisor's fault, because whoever's in charge, that's who's responsible in my book. And that person can quickly devolve into having an extramarital affair if the person isn't married. If you're having sex with your subordinates, it can create problems on the team and reduce and degrade team performance, etc., etc. And so maybe none of those are crimes per se, but we're taking advantage of an opportunity and creating some sort of level of chaos. Whether or not it's a crime at that point, it's not a good thing for the environment, and it's not a good thing for the individual perpetrating. Moving on. So let's talk about something really ugly. Um, I don't know how many of you have been to a party and alcohol is flowing like it's going out of style, and we want to keep the party going, so everybody's consuming and consuming and consuming, the men and the women. And before you know it, there's some sort of incident, or the next day, or a few weeks later, we find out that some sort of incident happened at the party where a girl, or it could be a guy, because I've heard this too, um, passes out, and somebody takes advantage. And what I mean, they're passed out and intoxicated, so they have sex with them, and which is rape, right? In a nutshell, that's exactly what it is. I guess you can't say that on the internet no more. But anyway, I guess I let it slip. But that sexual assault, is very much a crime. However, without the intoxicants, without the party that was passed out and unconscious, that crime probably would have never happened. But nonetheless, it's still a serious crime, and whoever committed that crime should get in trouble. Uh, but the nobody showed up there to thinking that's exactly what they were going to do. Maybe Bill Cosby does that shit or whatever, but most people don't function that way. Um, that is that is heinous, and it happens much too frequently. If you find yourself in that situation and you get tempted, um, I would tell you, walk away. Like it's not worth it. I don't even know how people find that enjoyable, having sex with some sort of corpse-like person. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But I mean, whatever floats your boat, as long as you have two willing parties and one is willing to participate in that fashion, fucking do you. But don't be out there taking opportunity or taking advantage of people who are incapacitated, because it's not good for them and it's not good for you, and especially is not good for you if you get caught, and you probably will get caught. Just depends on how determined people are, but yeah, if you do that to somebody I love, or whatever, yeah, it's gonna happen. Whether it's be fucking street justice or real justice, both. Fuck it. Um, moving on. Purses. We all see, and it doesn't have to be a purse. It could be a gym bag. It could be any type of, people carry their stuff with them all the time. They have backpacks everywhere you go. People have the shoulder bags now. The fanny pack has come back in vogue, and people are very trusting. They leave their stuff unsecured, or they do secure their stuff and they happen to turn away. And sometimes they develop a pattern of turning away. So the timing is right. You can time it and reach into a purse, reach into a bag, and take the shiny object, whatever it is, whether it be the wallet, the cash that's sticking out of the wallet, the anything of value that is in proximity, can be stolen. Um, is that realistic? Yeah, it's very real. Uh, People do that shit all the time. When I was in the army, gloves were a big deal, right? Every item is accountable. You have to keep track of all your shit. Why? One, because you probably need it, and two, because if you lose it, it's hard to replace it if you're in the field or deployed, right? You don't always have the store to go buy the thing and replace it like you do it when you're in garrison. So it's important for you to keep track of your stuff. But if you lose your gloves, what happens frequently is somebody loses their gloves, and then all of a sudden yours are gone too, and now they're on the other person's hands. And again, it's a situation where people wouldn't normally act out of character that way, but because they don't want to get in trouble, they fear the repercussions for losing a piece of equipment, or they don't want to get caught short and be freezing outside because and sometimes we just have to work outside in the elements, and the gloves are a tool that we use, of course, to keep warm, keep us from losing digits from exposure, etc. And people steal them. I always sewed my name in them, and so you even catch like senior NCOs and officers stealing people's shit. And again, most of these people wouldn't normally do that, uh, but the environment sometimes makes you act funny, and so a crime of opportunity is very very easy to pull to get tempted to pull off. Um, anyway, secure stuff. All you got to do is secure it, and that's our responsibility. But the perpetrator also has a responsibility not to give in to temptation. It's silly. That just go get your own shit. It's easy to do. Well, it should be easy to do, and I think it's mostly easy to do. Just depends on your skill level and your talent. But most 99% of us can fucking take care of ourselves the way we're supposed to. Next, porch pirates. We've heard of the people getting their Amazon package stolen. And again, there are people who go out there and do that as a living. And those are true criminals. That's not who I'm talking about. I'm talking about the kid who was walking home from school and he sees the package and he heard his friend talking about how um, my mom and dad ordered me this thing and I'm going to have it when I get home because Amazon's going to deliver it. Kids get excited. We adults get excited about their stuff, and there's nothing wrong with that. But once that information is out there, the kid who's walking home, who sees his friend's house, and who sees a package, and he happens to know what's inside of it, the package, and he also wants that toy or game as well, it might present itself, right? The package is there. He puts two and two together. Now he's off with the package, or she's off with the package, because they want that item too. Just don't take it. It doesn't have, it literally does not have your name on it. It literally has somebody else's name on it, and that person probably paid for it, right? It looks like a legitimate service to me. Um, don't steal it. Don't take advantage in that way. If you want the thing and you can't afford it, man, life is tough, dude. I mean, there's so much shit I want. I'm fucking materialistic like every other American, but it's not worth stealing. It's not worth losing your freedom over, because it simply happened to be there. Not no bueno. How about professionals? Let's move on to professionals. How can these people be opportunistic now? Professionals, depending on the type of crime they're committing, usually fall further up on the tiering system. So where I'm talking about group 3, which are frequently victims. These are people who don't intend on committing a crime. They just happen to get caught up for some reason, whether you be a troll, an addict, or an opportunist, or you commit an act that can lead to real crime. That's what we're talking about here. And some doctors and some professionals, again, they're not immune to being a human. Sometimes temptation is just part of being a human being, and they get caught up just like everybody else. They're not different from you and me. This simply, the types of things that they do are different. For example, doctors. We frequently hear of doctors getting in trouble for inappropriate billing. Sometimes it's a mistake, but you have to think about how many mistakes can be made, because when you get your itemized bill from the doctor, usually it has a fucking lines and lines and lines, because they want to charge you for everything. Because of course they're probably getting charged for everything, and so they must charge you in order for them to make a living, to make money. But sometimes accidents are made, and instead of charging you for one piece of gauze, they charge you for 2 or 5 or whatever. But once that discovery is made, It's their responsibility to give the money back. And I assume that most of them do, but some of them don't. And again, that's just another crime of opportunity. They wouldn't normally keep that type of. They wouldn't charge on purpose. Um, but the fact that they did, and the fact that they won't get caught if they don't report it, is too tempting for some people. Uh, but again, these crimes lead to more serious crimes. So if I learn that I can get away with it once, what if I do it every 10th time? Oh, what if I do it every fifth time now? Now I can. So the escalation is what I'm talking about here. We quickly go from a troll or an addict or an opportunist, and now we're a high level fraudster because every transaction we submit to the insurance company or that we bill to the customer has some sort of crime attached to it. Again, it's not good, and it's not hard for even the professional, because they're human, to fall into that rabbit hole. Lawyers, same thing. I would argue that a lot of them are just plain criminals. They just happen to know the law well enough to again take advantage of it. They are not all bad. A lot of them are, though. I'm challenged to think of a lawyer that I can respect and or admire. Several names come up, but none of them that I can think of are worth a shit. Not worth mentioning anyway. Um, so lawyers, what other types of professionals? Mechanics. That's not hard to put two and two together there for most people. You take the car to a mechanic and you have to trust, if you're not mechanically inclined, that they're telling you the truth about the services that your vehicle needs. And we already know that not all mechanics are upstanding. They'll tell you need an engine when all you need is a light bulb. And it's just a way for them to get money from you. And they think it's legitimate. It's a fucking crime. It's fraud. They're defrauding you. Unfortunately, you just don't know any better sometimes. And so you pay for the engine. You pay $2,000, $3,000 for the engine when you could have paid, $10 for the light bulb. And it's not good. Those people should not take advantage in that way. But I won't say they do it often, but they do it enough for it to be a fucking problem. Salesmen, saleswomen, they're always selling you something, and they're doing their job. That's how some people make money. But when you ask them to sell you only what you need, they should feel obligated to do just that, because you're the customer. You tell them what you want. I don't want anything more. I don't want anything less. I want exactly what I need. And often they can do that. In this service economy, we have calculators. They have different systems to be able to figure out the quantity of a thing. I just bought solar power. How many watts do I consume? What are my future electricity expenditures? At least that I'm predicting anyway, right? Let's build a system and right size it and get close to what you need. Not just now, but 12 months down the road, so we don't have to add more panels later. Well, they have the calculator to do that shit. It's not fucking hard. And there's typically a system like that for almost anything you buy. How much compute do I need in my data center if I'm going to be running X, Y, and Z services? How much storage do I need? What type of storage do I need? Do I need tiered storage? Do I need SSDs? Do I need NVRAM, NVMe? Do I need spinning storage, right? Long-term storage that it's going to be archived and I'm not going to access it frequently or ever again. We're going to store it on some cheap ass media, which is spinning platter hard drives, because the SSDs or the NVMe RAM is just more expensive. Why am I going to spend that money? A good technician won't sell you the shit you don't need. But often, and I've seen it, where they try to sell you all the doodads, all the bells and whistles, all the everything with the NVMe flash storage, and you don't need that stuff. It's robbery, especially when they're selling to the government, because that's usually the environment that I've been in when I've seen that stuff. It's fucking robbery. But that's where people like us come in, the engineers, and say, nah, fuck that, we don't need that stuff. Or you have somebody even smarter than you that says, nope, fuck that, we don't need that stuff. Again, opportunists, man, they're just taking advantage of the opportunity to make more money somehow, when they shouldn't be doing it. They're violating ethics at that point. and they're compromising their integrity. I don't care how you cut it, and maybe it's not important to them, but it should be. All right, tipping. I don't even know why it's part of the menu when you check out, uh, that it displays a fucking percentage of tip that I want to give you. You haven't fucking done anything besides take my order. We've been doing this for decades, centuries, maybe even. You charge me for the fucking thing. I give you my fucking money. Why do you think you're entitled to a tip? And I don't put that on the employees. I put that on the business, because the business are the ones that program the POS, the point of sale piece of shit as well. Because usually it's a high end expensive computer. I mean, it's a low end expensive computer, but it's a POS, and they can remove that menu. They just don't. They are taking advantage of the public. Our aversion to shame, our aversion to feeling guilty. So a lot of people just press the percentage button, 10%, 20%, whatever it is, so they don't feel bad, because you got another person on the other side of the counter looking at you. And we make those people accustomed to getting the tip. And now when you don't give them the tip, they feel insulted. Again, I don't think that's on the customer or the employee. That's on the fucking business that arranges that scenario. They should be, again, punched in the fucking head and leave a dent, because it's dumb. It's dumb. They know better, but they choose not to treat the situation properly and take advantage of your good heart, your good nature, our human desire to be liked. People say, "Oh, I don't want to be liked." Shut the fuck up. Go live in a cave. You won't survive, right? Because you're going to come out. Why? Because you want to be liked. So, and lastly, all right, so there's some people who, I don't know, their character, their personality doesn't lend itself to empathy, to sympathy. We'll talk about those people later. And so even murder is a crime of opportunity. There's nobody here. There are going to be no witnesses. Nobody can hear you scream. I don't fucking like you. You have a nice chain that I want, or whatever coveted item that person, whatever benefit that person is to gain by the other person's death, becomes a crime of opportunity. Even murder. Of course, a murder falls higher up on the tiering of this darkness scale. But a person who wouldn't normally kill somebody is put in a scenario where killing somebody is absolutely advantageous. You can imagine somebody who knows that someone has $1 million in a briefcase, and all you got to do is kill them, shoot them, slit their throat, whatever it takes, and you got $1 million, and probably you're not going to get caught. That's it's tempting for a lot of people. I don't think any money is worth my freedom, so I'm never going to risk it. But anyway, we can see how quickly these things escalate to much more damaging types of crime to the individual and to society at large. So we move from trolling, which is not necessarily benign but not criminalistic, to addiction, which is not benign. I think, addiction has left a stain on our society. I don't mean that to accuse addicts of being bad people. They're not. But the addictions lead to much more serious crime and much worse behavior. A person who is normally peaceful is now drinking and is acting violent. A person who is normally well-mannered and even-tempered is doing meth, crack, cocaine, heroin, or whatever, and acting out of sorts. And now their addiction has taken over, and they're out of money, and now they have to commit crime, and there you go. Same thing with the opportunist. It doesn't take a lot to go from taking advantage of a situation to learning that we could take advantage and then risking our freedom because we think we can get away with it every single time. Again, the more you commit crime, the more opportunity you have to get caught. It's that simple. You're playing the odds, and there are better odds to play. What should you do? I don't know why we don't incentivize the reward anymore of just being a good person, of just being a decent human being, of just keeping our integrity intact to the best of our ability. Walking by a situation that we know we can take advantage of, but not doing it and not taking advantage because we know it's the right thing to do, just to walk away from that inebriated female who's at the party who can easily be taken advantage of, or even better yet, protecting her, putting her in a cab and getting her home, or putting her with her friends group and ensuring that she's safe, or the guy, right? Because that's a very serious thing. I've heard of the guy who gets raped because he was intoxicated. It's not as uncommon as you would think, and that's not good. That's not good for the male. I think it's just as devastating for males as it is for females to get raped, and it's not a good thing. And if you're a perpetrator, if you're the perpetrator, your freedom, your life isn't worth it. And I don't know why you don't, or if nobody's ever told you, but there's value in trying to establish a proper moral compass. There's value in preserving your dignity and those of others. There is more value in that than there is on perpetrating crime against people, because some people never recover from that. You have to understand the consequences of your action, not just for you, but for the other people. Um, if you don't have a sense of empathy, if you don't have a sense of compassion, if you don't understand what morals or ethics are, I would just encourage you to look in the dictionary and start with the definition of the things. And then ask yourself, are these things important to me? Integrity, doing the right thing when nobody is looking. What does that earn me? It earns me trust. People will learn to trust me. Well, we could leave Juan alone with whatever item, even if it's worth $10 billion, he could put it in his pocket and get away with stealing it. We know it's going to be there in the morning. Why? Because that's not who Juan is, right? That's not who I am. That goes a long way. Think about your employment. Where will people trust you? What responsibilities will people trust you with? And the more people can trust you with responsibility, typically the more money you can make. It's directly correlated with your income, the type of person you are, and it's not perfect, right? We know the douchebags who make it, people who are recipients of the nepotism, or they just know how to weasel their way into places. Okay, got it. But more often than not, you got to earn your place in this life, and integrity, your proper moral compass, um, a layer of ethics on top of all that will take you a long way. And besides that, make this world a better place. You know, we're always complaining about how shitty things are and how hard it is, but we don't take inventory of our own faults and where we're going wrong and what deviant behavior that we're injecting into society. We have to do that. It's going to help you become a better person, and it's going to help the environment that you're always complaining about improve. And it's worth the effort. And I encourage all of you to simply look at the dictionary and understand what those words are, so that you can avoid the pitfalls of more criminalistic behavior, simply because of the way that the human condition is. Our hearts are dark. The darkness is going to exist on its own. I can't express that enough, because our hearts are not malevolent, but life is hard enough where we're willing to do treacherous things in order to survive. In the Western world, in this modern society, we don't have to operate that way. It doesn't have to be that way. It is like that in a lot of places, but it doesn't have to be like that at all. At all. I know you don't believe me, but look at a rich community. Look at rich communities, or communities that function well. It doesn't have to be rich. It doesn't have to have a lot of money associated to it. But look at communities that function well. It's not that they have more money. It's not that they're born better. They just choose to behave in a better way. They just choose to operate differently, to actually make those things important. Religious people remind me a lot of that. I know that I talk a lot of shit about them because some of them are shit. Again, they can be just as evil as they can be good. But if you look at religious communities, some of them tend to operate much, much better than others. I think of Jewish folks. I think it's just a fact. that their kids tend to do better, that them as a group tend to do better. Why? Because they've adopted certain philosophies and they take them serious. Maybe too serious on occasion, but nonetheless, does it make them better than you and me? I don't know about all that. But do they behave better, and do they add, or they value added to society in large? I think very much so. Anyway, um, the opportunist. Don't be an opportunist. There are better things to take advantage of in life. Work on yourself. Have a good day.